Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our Back to School media briefing. As of this past Monday, all schools are back in session, and I'm pleased to report a successful opening of 126 schools. As of Tuesday, 64,064 students attended, which was 2,225 students more than Monday, August 23rd. We expect these numbers to continue to increase. Today we share some updates about the start of school. I have with me Chief Academic Officer Dr. Whitney Oakley, Chief Financial Officer Angie Henry, and Chief Student Services Officer Dominic Robinson. This year, in-person learning is taking place 5 days per week for all students pre-K through 12, with 3 feet of distance between students and 6 feet of distance between adults or between adults and students where possible. This summer, our Board of Education voted to continue requiring a face covering for all students and staff when indoors, except while eating and drinking. This requirement will be reevaluated at the end of 10 weeks. We continue to encourage all eligible students and staff to be vaccinated, as we know that masking and vaccinations are the 2 most effective strategies to limit the spread of COVID-19. According to the CDC, some sports and high-risk extracurricular activities can put players, coaches, trainers, and others at increased risk for getting and spreading COVID-19. Consequently, in accordance with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the Board of Education voted to require regular testing of athletes and coaches who are not vaccinated. In the coming weeks, we will begin testing those individuals twice per week, as we are currently at high transmission in Guilford County. Students may choose to be tested on campus to reduce inconvenience to them or their families. Also this year, we have expanded the use of the one-card student ID as students get on the bus and as they enter the school building. All buses are equipped with the one-card scanner, and more than 60 schools have the equipment to scan into the building, including all comprehensive high schools. Due to the global supply chain delays, all one-card scanners were not delivered for the first day of school, as we anticipated. In addition to functioning as school and public library cards, reducing the need for cash transaction at schools, and streamlining the attendance process, the one card helps us quickly identify who is in our buildings in case of an emergency and gives us an added layer of security on our campuses. Earlier this summer, we informed our families of changes to our bell schedule. These changes allow us to be more efficient and will reduce the number of late buses. Families of bus riders are encouraged to use the Here Comes the Bus app, which will show them their child's bus stop and help them track their bus location. Especially at the start of the school year, please have your child at the bus stop 10 minutes early so he or she does not miss the bus. This year, we are fortunate that the federal government has continued the school nutrition waiver, which allows 100% of our students to be provided with breakfast and lunch for free. However, all families must continue to fill out the free and reduced lunch application. Without this information, the district will lose out on millions of dollars in direct funding to our schools, including teaching positions, funding for summer programs, instructional materials and technology, such as laptops, iPads, and hotspots that allowed us to become a one-to-one district. This information may also be used to qualify for PEBT cards or to support a request for an athletics fee waiver. The free and reduced lunch application can be completed online at www.lunchapplication.com. We know we are facing unprecedented and in many cases massive learning loss. after 2 disrupted years of school. While official results won't be available until next week, preliminary data indicate that we should expect dramatic declines across all subject areas. We must understand that the impact of the pandemic on students is significant and long-term. Teachers and families require different supports. This will not be one size fits all, and we will need to sustainably support our students through learning loss recovery efforts for years to come. Like many other districts across the nation, we are working to accelerate learning for all students. One new opportunity that we are offering in GCS this year is coding and engineering for all elementary students at all elementary schools. We have also launched a comprehensive tutoring program for students who have fallen behind. Numerous studies show high dosage tutoring is more likely to positively impact students than other interventions that we might try. And tutors mentoring students can help students get back on track. Students and families can contact their schools for more information on tutoring. We are continuing to hire tutors through our university partners and our own high school students who are in advanced placement or international baccalaureate classes. Please visit our website and click on the Careers tab for information on how to apply to be a tutor. High school students who become tutors will not only be paid, but will also receive high school course credit. After becoming a one-to-one district during the last year, we now have devices for every student in Guilford County Schools. Schools are distributing these devices to students to take home during the first week of school. Should students have to quarantine or isolate, students will have access to classroom instruction or miss work through these devices. If a small number of students is quarantined, assignments will be provided through each teacher's Canvas page. Teachers will also maintain regular contact with students who are at home and will provide feedback on student work. If large numbers of students are quarantined, reaching 50% or more of a class, teachers will use the swivel devices, a type of robotic device with a camera to provide access to classroom instruction for both students who are quarantined and those who remain in person. If an entire class is quarantined, teachers will provide instruction remotely, including live lessons, opportunities for individual meetings, and feedback on assigned work. This is a lot of information to absorb, but we have made it easy for families to find on our website. All the information is listed at www.gcsnc.com/reopening2021, including a video that will walk you through some of the changes for this school year. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. We have several department heads who are in the room with us from departments such as emergency management and safety, facilities, athletics, and student assignments. So with that, I'll take questions.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You had mentioned encouraging teachers and staff to get vaccinated. I'm wondering if you have any numbers on the percentage of your staff that's vaccinated, and what are you doing to encourage them to get vaccinated?
Thank you for your question. Last year, we know the number was about 65% of the staff. We currently are mandating that all staff inform the district. The board voted on this, that all staff must inform the district of their vaccination status. That survey is still out, and so we're waiting to hear from our staff, and we'll have an update for the public. We expect it to be similar to last year, but we do hire several hundred staff members a year, so I can't say it's still at 65% or it's slightly less or slightly higher, but it should be somewhere around that number, but we're hopeful that it will be higher. We also offer to healthcare providers the ability to use our facilities to offer clinics on site, And we advertise those to staff and to eligible students so that it is convenient for them to have vaccinations right on school sites, and we'll continue to do that.
First of all, congrats on the contract extension to 2025.
Thank you.
This question is going to be a two-parter. What staffing struggles are you guys dealing with? I mean, how many vacancies are there for educators, and what are those subjects that you're seeing the most vacancies in?
Right now, we have 0 teacher vacancies, not even in special education, which is very difficult to fill. So I just want to applaud all of the principals and our tremendous human resources department. This is also a result of having ESSER funds and CARES Act funds, where we were able to offer $20,000 signing bonuses to teachers to come into the district. That really helped us this year. We do expect to see some of the normal sort of resignations occurring because, you know, you can offer this in any district now. All districts have ESSER funds. So we do expect some movement around, but right now we have 0 teacher vacancies in the district.
I also have a question. So you mentioned a little touch on transportation. I've had just, you know, I've seen across the triad around this area, you know, a lot of parents concerned about bus COVID-19 safety protocols. What does that look like for students here in GCS? I mean, is there a way you guys social distance or clean the seats or ensure that students have masks? Can you kind of tell me what that looks like?
So we keep masks on the bus for students, and students must mask on all buses. We do try to maintain that 3 feet of social distancing, and we do ask that siblings are seated together. We ask that all bus drivers maintain seating charts so that we are clear where students are seated in case we need to do contact tracing. But you are right, this is a concern for parents, and we're seeing that in the traffic, the unprecedented traffic and car lines across the district. And we've received quite a few calls about this and asking, what is the district going to do about these traffic lines? Well, the district can't really control this, but I can give you some data. Generally, the district transports about 35,000 students a year. This year, the ridership is only at 14,000, meaning that right now, about 50,000 parents are choosing to transport students, adding an additional 20,000 cars to the roads and to the schools or the areas surrounding the schools. There's no way the district can mandate that children get on the bus or tell parents you can't drive your children to school, and we certainly understand their concerns about bus safety, and these are concerns, as you stated, across the region, across the state, and I've seen this throughout many states, you know, across the United States. But we do understand the concerns that the community is bringing forward and parents are bringing forward about the car lines. But if parents are choosing to drive students to school, the car lines are going to be long, and we are going to have to be patient.
With cases rising, what are the chances that we'll go back to virtual learning, and are there benchmarks you're looking at for the numbers to make that decision?
So I want to make sure I heard you clearly. You're saying with the rising numbers, what are the chances that we would go back to virtual learning?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you mean as an entire district?
Yes, ma'am.
So right now, I think I can say that I would not make that recommendation unless the governor says we have to close schools. I think that you will see classrooms quarantined, and you may even see schools that have to close for a period of time. And we're seeing that across the nation, but we are going to do everything in our power to keep the district open because the learning loss is just so massive, and even the mental health issues we're seeing with students and the trauma that students have faced from 17 months of remote learning is so great. So we are going to do everything never to make that recommendation unless it comes from the health department, which can make that recommendation, or the governor's office.
Dr. Contreras, I wanted to ask you about what happened in Davidson County recently. Do you think the fact that y'all started with masks from the outset will keep you from having to go through the situation they have with a great increase in numbers because they started without masks?
I'm sorry, I missed the question completely.
Oh,
You wanted to ask me, there's a camera on your
Oh,
face, so
okay.
I can't see you.
Oh, that's all right. Dr. Contreras, I wanted to ask you, do you think you can avoid what happened in Davidson County recently with the huge increase in cases at the start of their school year with the institution of masks at the very beginning? Or is it just a matter of when, not if, that will happen here?
Okay, could you just, thank you, if you would help me with that.
Yeah. So he's asking in Davidson County, they had a significant increase in the number of cases because they started the school year without masking. He wants to know if that's gonna happen here. Given that we started with masking, do we anticipate similar?
An increased number?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that we anticipated what happened in Davidson County, that without the mask, they would have to reverse course. And we certainly, know we're in a global pandemic and that we will see cases where students are quarantined. I think right now we have approximately 242 GCS students that are quarantined. That includes, of course, 99 student athletes. Only 5 of these cases are epi-linked, meaning only 5 of these cases occurred because of attending school. But we believe that's because of our very tight protocols. So we knew in districts where there are these very loose mask mandates, there's a greater chance of having to close schools. So we're going to continue with this until we see the transmission rates decline, and until the health department and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services tell us that it is safe to go mask optional.
Do you have any updates on air conditioning? Is this an ongoing problem in the district?
On air conditioning?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Give me a moment. I do have exact numbers for you, and then I would ask our Chief Operating Officer, Michelle Reed, to come forward to assist with this. But currently, we have had about 540 work orders put forward by schools for HVAC issues in buildings. This is a very high number for us, and there are several issues contributing to this. One is just the scorching heat. Our buildings are on average of anywhere from 55 to 60 years old. And as you all know from the 2019 facility study, they have gone many years without investment, which is why we kept pushing for the bond referendum. So many of these systems are very old in schools, and now we have a supply chain issue where there are global delays in getting the parts to repair these very old systems. In some cases, the HVAC systems are so old, you have to fabricate the parts. And again, there are trucking delays. We can't get the parts for 6 to 8 weeks. And it is very uncomfortable in the buildings. I'll turn it over to Ms. Reed to see if she has other comments about just some of the delays and problems we're seeing in the buildings, but I believe we've had 44 buildings with problems thus far.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Contreras. We are experiencing unprecedented amount of work orders within our HVAC system specifically. We did not have schools closed throughout the school year, which is also a contributing factor because typically we would do preventative maintenance during these school closures. So at this point, we are trying to proactively address all issues, but we go out to a site, we may address it, and then we may have to come back out because there may be another failure at that site. So we are looking to our SSOs and all of our school administrators to work with us, and we are working directly with all school principals to make sure that we're keeping our kids safe and proactively moving them around if we need to. And we're moving out, we cannot provide fans because of COVID, but we are looking to see how we can supplement some of the air in some of the larger areas.
Ms. Reed, could you restate your name and your title, and could you spell your name, please?
Sure, Michelle Reed, MICHELLEREED. My title is Chief Operating Officer.
I want to add that we know indoor passive exposure to extreme heat may pose a medical threat. When most of the building reaches 85 degrees, and we know we cannot reverse that, they cannot repair that, we do close buildings. And we're going to see that until the heat breaks. We do want to stress again to the parents and community, this is why we push so hard on investment in school facilities. The school board does not have tax levying authority. We have no way to generate funds. And it's why we plead, please invest in public schools and in capital because of these sort of issues that we're facing right now. Even in some of our newest buildings, that extreme heat is causing problems. When you build a school, even if it's a newer building, you still have to invest in the maintenance of the systems, or you're going to see these sort of problems when you have what we call acts of God, like the extreme heat. And that's what we're facing right now in at least a third of the school buildings, and it's very uncomfortable, and we certainly apologize that any child or staff member has to endure that, but we are going to continue, the school district and the school board, to advocate for funding for better school facilities and for the maintenance of our systems, our facilities here in GCS.
Hi, Dr. Contreras. This is Carrie Brown with WFDD. Good to see everybody. What I wanted to ask was, I know the legislative committee meeting will be meeting before too long. Based on what you just said, is that a number one priority, or is there one overall arching priority in regards to the legislative agenda and what you're looking at as a district?
I think school funding is always the number one priority. And certainly facilities is critical because no learning will take place if we can't keep students in school. And for many who have not walked through the buildings, I think sometimes they believe we're exaggerating about this. And I was at a meeting recently where someone said because they participated in Principal for a Day, they were able to actually see the conditions of the buildings. And they were stunned about that. So I know we get tired of hearing about this, but I encourage you to, if you'd like to see this, to make an appointment with my office, at my office, and I'd be glad to have a staff member show you the conditions of some of these schools. We have some buildings that are 100 years old, and we're trying to maintain these systems where we don't even have parts for them. And the students are trying to learn in these buildings, some with asthma and other pre-existing conditions, and it's just very, very difficult for them. And I applaud the teachers and principals who made it through yesterday, but we're just not going to force them to endure this. We're sending a school home as we speak because we can't get the air condition fixed today, and we expect more of that. But this is another plea. We hope to have another bond referendum placed to the voters in March, and we ask that all of Guilford County support our schools, support your friends and neighbors who are staff members in schools, and most of all, support our children by voting for that bond referendum.
Dr. Contreras, I wanted to ask, first off, what school are you sending home just now?
I believe that's Jamestown Middle. Jamestown Middle.
And you referred to a third of the schools. I wasn't sure if it was a third of the schools that had some problem with air conditioning or a third of the schools where the air conditioning was not working throughout the building.
No, that have some problem. It could be a handful of classrooms, but a third of the schools have reported at least a classroom had concerns. And I want to make sure that's accurate.
That is correct. Yes, it's only a third of the schools.
Are there any more facilities-related questions while Ms. Reed is out? No, okay, thank you, Ms. Reed.
If I could, you mentioned testing athletes twice a week, and I see in my mind a potentially chaotic situation. That is an awful lot of people, an awful lot of testing, and I'm wondering if you have any concerns about how that is going to operate.
I ask our Director of Athletics, Mr. Hubbard, to come forward to respond.
Thank you. If I heard the question, do you have any concerns about the number of athletes and the
The
testing
frequency
program?
of testing and the number of athletes that you have, be concerned that this could be a potentially difficult problem.
I do not think so. Remember, we're only testing those that are not fully vaccinated, so that cuts the number down significantly of who actually has to be tested. We're still collecting the information to determine that number, but also the testing process, although we don't have all the final plans, is a very quick and easy process, so we should be able to take care of it very quickly each time we do a testing cycle.
Done on campus?
Yes, on campus.
And when will these numbers come out? The superintendent had mentioned that about staff and athletes. When do you hope to have this report out?
I don't know if it'll be a report, but hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have final numbers from all the schools. It is, as new athletes are coming out, because some of the middle schools have just started practice, that number will change probably daily until we get up to the point we actually start testing.
Would you state your name and title?
Lee, L-E-I-G-H, Hebbard, H-E-B-B-A-R-D, Director of Activities, Athletics, and Driver's Education.
Thank you.
Doctor, could you provide some color around your earlier comment? I believe you said there were 242 students who were quarantined, and you mentioned 99 students. Was that at a particular school, or could you explain that a little bit?
99 are student athletes. Mr. Hubbard, I hate to ask you to come back up, but if you could speak to that. 99 are student athletes.
All right, I was sitting down, so I didn't hear the question.
Your max.
What was the question?
Well, I had just asked for some color around the quarantining of 242 students. I had missed the reference to the 99 students, so I gather those are athletes.
Could you just give a little more clarification about the 99 student athletes?
Right, so typically, and not in every case, but typically when we have one student test positive, when they do complete the tracking and tracing investigation, they usually find another athlete or two somewhere that might have been exposed. So that then increases the number of quarantines. So you have one student test positive, you usually have several others that are quarantined along with that.
Right, and when he says they, that means the Department of Health. I want to be clear because parents call us all the time. The district does not quarantine. The Department of Health quarantines.
And 242 sounds like a pretty low number. I mean, are you pleased with that number, or?
I mean, it seems like a low number.
I mean, it seems to be a low number. Are you pleased with that number?
I would be pleased if it was 0, but I am pleased because we've been in school actually 3 weeks. Remember, our first students went to school 1 week ago. So, we take a lot of heat for being a little stricter on health protocols, but you can see that our health protocols are working. By demanding that we wear a mask in schools, our schools remain open, which I think, irrespective of where you are on the issue of mask, I think all of us want children in school, and we're able to keep them in school because of these protocols.
Back to facilities, we've had several parents and staff members call us saying they're worried that students are not able to stay 3 feet apart. What would you tell them?
In some schools, parents have expressed concern that the students aren't 3 feet apart.
So certainly that is true, but if you go to the guidance from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services and their school toolkit, the guidance states that you should do everything you can to keep students 3 feet apart, but you should not preclude students from coming to school because you cannot. And the 2 strategies that we should employ to make sure students are safe are the vaccinations for eligible students and the masking are the 2 best strategies. So while 3 feet apart is helpful, It is not as helpful as the masking.
Sorry, Dr. Contreras, I just want to touch one more time on the transportation. You know, students, I just want to get into a little more detail. Students, you know, when they're walking through, it's very narrow. You know, they're walking through, they're touching all the seats. Is there any kind of, you know, cleaning service or anything you guys do at the end of the night or first thing in the morning that comes in and kind of wipes down the seats or anything like that? I've just had a lot of parents who.
I'll ask Ms. Reed to come forward again and talk about our cleaning protocols. I'll also direct you to the GCS School Reentry FAQ that has many of these protocols within them if you want to go back to refer to them, and parents can certainly refer to them as well. It is on the website.
Yes, and in there is the transportation cleaning protocols, but we, every night and during every run, after each tier, we clean, the bus drivers are responsible for cleaning the buses, wiping all the seats down, making sure that we're sanitizing for the next load of students that are coming on. So we do have those protocols in place, and all the drivers are trained thoroughly, and we are also verifying that they are doing that routinely.
And it's also important to note that when possible, we're keeping the windows on the bus open for airflow as well, to keep the air moving while the bus is in motion.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Contreras, you touched a little bit before on seeing mental health issues or concerns for some students learning throughout the pandemic. I wanted to know what, aside from school counselors, what resources are available to both parents and students to kind of help them through?
You're talking about helping them through with any mental health concerns and things. Yes, I'd like to introduce our new Chief Student Services Officer, Dominic Robinson, who can talk through some of the services we provide and resources that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Contreras. Yeah, so there's a lot of different supports. There's a lot of different supports that our team is actually deploying into the community right now. Among those, we actually have 48 cohort schools that we service monthly. We serve all of the schools upon request, and we provide training for various district departments. We collaborate with various departments, and we have a lot of external partners as well. Some of those include SEL Adult Department, Systemic SEL Implementation Tools, SEL Curriculum Support for identified elementary schools. There are currently, I believe, 17 of those that we're working in. We also provide SEL MTSS, that stands for
SEL, if you would.
SEL.
SEL, Social Emotional Learning.
Yes, ma'am. For multi-tiered system support. So there's a lot of work being done right now, and we have social workers and counselors in each of the different schools that are there on rotation.
I'd like to also stress that we have many community agencies that are working with us, providing mental health supports to our families and helping with trauma-informed instruction, training our teachers on this. And so our counselors and social workers know to refer students, once it gets to a certain point, to these outside agencies to provide support, because the school district simply we just don't have the number of social workers, the number of counselors, psychologists, to provide the support with all of the resources that Mr. Robinson referred to. It's just not enough for the amount of trauma that we're seeing. One study I just read said about 49% of students are reporting depression at the secondary level. We're not equipped for that. Our core business is teaching and learning. So we are highly dependent on our outside partners and agencies who do this as their core business to continue to work with us. And we are going to work to expand those relationships and hopefully use ESSER funds to build those relationships and partnerships so that students can call upon some adult help if they need it.
Thank you.
What has policing of students wearing masks look like on campus? And is the district talking about for the upper level high school students, if they are repeat offenders, that they will be punished in a certain way?
What does wearing the mask look like?
What does policing of students?
Policing.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. the students really haven't had the problem. We've been in school for, I think, since last October, and we haven't had these issues. I think in terms of policing, it's been mainly, please pull the mask up over your nose. That's what we see the most, the masks don't fit properly. But in terms of students just saying, we won't do this, it's more the adults. We, the adults, are the ones who are getting into this very politicized battle over should we wear a mask or not. But in the schools, you know, the little ones are very used to, the kindergartners do better than the seniors, you know, because it's what they know. They're so small, it's just what they know. But we, to my knowledge, have not had any disciplinary concerns with students saying we refuse to wear a mask in schools. I think the students are just happy to be back in school with their peers and getting back to some sense of normalcy.
Last year, GCS became a one-to-one school district. Is that still the same case for this year?
Yes, we haven't gotten rid of the laptops. So yes, we are a one-to-one district, and we're so pleased we were able to generate those funds. But I do want to reiterate what I said earlier. We were able to do that in no small part because of the amount of funding we received because of our free and reduced lunch applications. Now that the federal government has said that 100% of students receive free lunch, I mean, some parents may say, well, I don't have to complete this application. If we don't complete this application, then our free and reduced lunch rates drop, and we won't receive the same amount of funding. So again, please parents, even if you think you're not eligible, please complete that application so that we not lose millions of dollars in funding to the school district.
I don't want to make more out of it than perhaps it is, but is there an update, any further information regarding the fight at Northeast High School?
An uptick in
Northeast High School fight, is there any further information or update that you can provide?
Yes, I can. I'd like to introduce, we have a new Senior Director of Emergency Management Services and Safety, who was the former Deputy Police Chief for the Greensboro Police Department, Mr. Mike Ritchie. So welcome, and if you could please provide an update on Northeast High.
Certainly, and I'll hit the admin part first. It's Mike Ritchie, M-I-K-E-R-I-C-H-E-Y, Executive Director of Emergency Management. So with Northeast High, we had a fight break out, as each of y'all know, shortly after the bus line earlier in the week, and this was at the exit of the school. During that fight, several small fights erupted around each other. So we're talking probably the better part of 15 to 20 kids involved in a fight that just seemed to be brewing very quickly that afternoon. You never look for the bright side, but you always look for the bright side of this. The staff was prepared and they were in the right places. So this fight lasted less than 20 seconds when you look at videos from it. It was over quickly, the staff responded very quickly, and were able to keep things calmed down and got that to happen very quickly. The next piece they did was the staff took and did what they always do. They contacted the families, brought the families in individually, discussed what was going on, and completed an investigation to figure out what needed to happen to keep that school safe, not just the rest of the week, but that very night. And so with that, several students did not come back to school the next day. It wasn't a matter of suspension or anything like that. It was a matter of figuring out what had occurred. So the next day it started out with plenty of staff on hand, additional law enforcement on hand, and again, everyone was safe, and that was the number one piece. No issues the next day at all.
Any arrests, any suspensions?
There are no arrests, and we don't discuss suspensions because it's really important that we focus on keeping the kids' identities together, keeping them safe so that they can enjoy the freedom to get a good education. So we're not going to discuss suspensions.
You can look at our district code of conduct to see what the consequences are for fighting, and they are very clear. We follow the code of conduct.
Hey, so two-part COVID-related question. First part is staff. How many staff have you had request an exemption from wearing masks? Would it be, a handful, 100, 0, 200? What does that look like for you all?
We've had 0 staff request an exemption.
Okay, and second part is, I'm wondering what your attendance looks like for students and staff. Any sign yet of possibly COVID affecting attendance, whether that be people affected from something inside schools or outside of schools?
So yesterday there were, I gave you the number, 64,064 students in school. So I can't tell you how many of those are out because of COVID-related issues. I can tell you the Guilford County Health Department says there are 242 GCS students quarantined.
How many students are you supposed to have?
How many?
How many are you supposed to have? You said a certain number came to school, but how many are you supposed to have?
What's our projection?
I think.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the projection is about 70,800 students, but the first 2 days of school are always low. That number increases every day up to the 10th day. So there's nothing you can glean from that about COVID necessarily. Because if you go back 5 years, you'll see every day the numbers are lower than the next day for at least a 10-day period.
So what's your best guess as far as whether
I don't have a
COVID?
guess about
Okay.
it because I don't speculate about it.
We have a lot of parents watching the live stream. They want to ask more questions about the long pickup and drop-off lines. Have you considered opening school doors earlier, and do you think the bell schedule changes made an impact on the lines?
No, I think the parents choosing to not use the school bus made an impact. Let me state the numbers again. We transport 35,000 students to school. Only 14,000 are riding the bus. That means 21,000 more cars are going to our schools every day. That is the increase. That's causing the delays. The personal choices of families are causing the delays.
And just a few more now.
Dr. Contreras, I want to ask you on that. I know some districts are seeing bus driver shortages and they're offering incentives and those sorts of things. I know the situation, it sounds like not as many kids are riding a bus this year, but is that something that you are concerned about, or what is your bus driver number?
Yeah, we're always concerned about it. Our bus driver vacancy rate is about the same that it always is. I think we have a little over 40 vacancies. And this concern, I think, may be greater than it has been in the past because private industry is now increasing compensation at a rate that we cannot keep up with because we have a state salary scale, so it's totally up to the General Assembly that has not increased the wages for our classified staff to the $15 an hour. And even when we do it, now we see McDonald's is offering $20 an hour. In the state, you have Target and Walmart offering tuition reimbursement and perhaps $20 an hour and a much higher rate than $15 an hour. It is very difficult to compete with that or to try to convince someone, please stay when you can have your tuition reimbursed and then go on and become a professional member of a staff or go into private industry at some point. So it's just going to be very difficult. As I speak and meet with superintendents across the state, we are struggling with maintaining staff in a time where we see this sort of competition. I also noticed that private industry is struggling, that basic restaurants are closing early because they don't have enough staff to maintain the hours that they previously maintained. But the public sector, like school districts, are really going to struggle because we are completely dependent on the actions of the General Assembly.
If you could give parents at home a message as we go into this uncertain year, what would you tell them?
Say that again.
Yeah. If you could give parents at home a message as we go into this uncertain school year, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so I want to always remind parents that in the midst of a frustrating period in American history and in this state, in this community, as we continue to go through the pandemic, there continues to be such wonderful things happening in our schools. And our schools continue to be a safe haven. I want to remind us that many people thought students wouldn't return. Well, our kindergartners have come back, and it is wonderful to see kindergartners in the classroom and the classrooms filled. We have more than 64,000 students in school. Our pre-Ks are in session, the youngest of our students. Our restart schools, of which there are 23, successfully opened a week early. Our early and middle colleges are successfully opened. We have 540 buses on the road every day. We have a 100% fill rate for our teachers while other districts are struggling. We were able to provide raises and bonuses for all of our dedicated staff. We have a one-to-one device district, and we are completely ready if we have to quarantine a student to make sure they don't miss instruction. And our students are happy to be back in school. We see the joy in their faces. And more than anything else, we want our parents to know, our principals, our food service staff, our bus drivers, our teachers, assistants, all of the staff are so happy. We're so pleased. We're overcome with joy just to see our children back in school 5 days a week. And we want the parents to know we are going to make the best of this situation. We always do, because we believe in your children. We're never going to give up on them. We absolutely love them, and we thank you for choosing Guilford County Schools. It's going to be a great school year, and we're going to get through this together because we are at GCS.
That was a terrific ending, but I think Daniel wants to ask one last one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I know.
I apologize. I'm so sorry. But no, I want to ask, what adjustments have you as a district made since the start of the school year? What has worked and what hasn't worked when it comes to procedures? And what could parents expect in the next couple of weeks? Are there any major changes coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I think we're trying to adjust how we handle the car lines to accommodate the increase in parents driving their children to school. We're not going to change, cut any time off of the school day, because students need to be in school a certain amount of time, that's 7 hours, so we're not going to decrease that just to accommodate the car lines. But we're going to work to make the lines as efficient as possible. We'll continue to review our protocols for our COVID health and safety protocols. And we're also going to review our quarantine procedures to make sure that while students are out, that they not lose any ground. They've lost so much already, and we don't want them to lose anything else. So we are listening to parents as they send us ideas and their thoughts on how things are progressing. We actually encourage that. Please let us know if you have an idea about how something could be done more efficiently. But I do ask that parents maintain an open mind to understand, because the car line was a perfect example of people thinking this had something to do with the starting end times and not understanding that now 51,000 parents were suddenly driving their children to school. And there's nothing any of us could do to make that line go more smoothly or quickly if that many parents are driving. But if parents have ideas about how to do things more efficiently, we love love to hear from them because we want them to have a good school year. We want their children to have a great school year. We want them to continue to believe in GCS.
Thank you all so much.